Hello. So today we are joined by Rachelle. And instead of me introducing you, can you introduce yourself and let us know who you are and what you do?
Hello. Okay. Hi. I'm Rochelle. I am a poet, a tea lover master. You can see my tiny teapot. We'll get into that. And yeah, I do poetry coaching and now I'm like doing a poetry course. Um, it's all part of my I guess you can say all part of my mindfulness practice, especially in context of what Leah does here. Um, because writing poetry is a beautiful thing to kind of capture a certain emotion in a certain moment. Um, and tea is also just so grounding. It's like a meditation practice. Um,
I love
I'll
that.
keep it there and we'll talk more.
I love that. And can I just have to say this to anybody listening. Rochelle has very kindly got up at 2 a.m. to record this. So thank you so much. I'm sure that the tea is helping as well, knowing that you've got that there. So on to the poetry, because I love this. I think poetry and journaling and writing is such a great way to stay mindful and to get all those thoughts that have like kind of muddled in your head out onto paper. And it took me a very long time to even start journaling because I would get my notepad, I would just think, oh, I don't have anything to say, and I would leave it. And it wasn't until I started like literally writing down every single thought. It didn't have to make sense on paper, but I was just getting it out of my head and onto paper that it everything just like shifted for me and I felt so much more clear-minded. Can you talk a little bit about how the poetry can help with that?
Absolutely. And even just to your point there, I mean, there's so many people who tell me like, "Oh my God, I just never open up my journals." I'm like, "Well, you're buying a pretty journal, you're prepping yourself." But yeah, I mean, like just starting with journaling, and that was a huge thing in 2020 for me to like really process trauma was to just journal all these things you know, that I'm tired of saying out loud and confusing my mind with, really straighten myself out in the way, to say, by journaling. Um, and I've always been interested in poetry, so then in that time I just started also writing a lot and then it's there in general for me. So I love, the poetic mind, it's very different from our regular conversational mind. So yeah, it comes from a deeper place of passion. And when you have a poem, it's like this beautiful capsule of emotion that expresses something just so, different, and you can always return to whatever this feeling was. I have my three poetry books I published across um 3 years. And it's all like, wow, I can look back and see what my state of mind was. I can see how I healed and these beautiful moments I was having. So it helps me remember who I am.
Yes, I love that. Is this something that you've always done then? Like as a child, did you write poems and you just kind of carried on?
I got interested in poetry around age 11 or so. When I started listening to like emo hardcore music, I was just really inspired by the songwriting.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got to ask this. What bands? What bands was it?
Okay, in the top tier, my favorite band is Alisana. And but like My Chemical Romance would be a bigger one that more people could understand and identify with. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, this is like taking me back to my emo days. Because I
Yes.
must admit, I was a little emo back in the day at like
Good.
17. Yeah. And in fact, that was one of the reasons because I've never been one to like follow the crowds anyway. And that was one of the reasons I was got really into that music was the lyrics, but also the way that they would sing and they would like I felt like it was this whole new music genre where they started like singing over each other. I'm sure you probably know
Mm.
what I mean about the like it reminds me of Taking Back Sunday, like where they kept singing over each other and it just completely drew me in. And that was the kind of music where the words felt like it actually meant something when you listen to like all the pop and the stuff that was out around that time, and it was like, what is this rubbish? Whereas them was like, yes, I love this kind of stuff. So that was
Yeah. Well,
when, carry on.
Avril Lavigne too was like my start into music, and she was so inspiring for young girls like us because like she was all about her self-expression, all about standing out of the crowd. And I mean, yeah, she fit in the pop genre because she was very popular and bless her at a young age. But she was so alternative that a lot of us looked up to her. And that probably was, I mean, part of what fed into me liking stuff like My Chemical Romance, but I felt it so deep in my heart too. Like it made me feel empowered. It made me feel like I'm standing for something.
Yes. Yeah. Avril Lavigne was definitely a very a big change for a lot of people, I feel like, in that time. And I love the fact that now she still is the same. Like you feel like, I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who were into all of this stuff when we were younger. It's like they felt like they've had to grow up, and they're not they're not into the same music, they're not dressing the same. I mean, obviously I can say that myself.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting to see that she is still herself. Like that was always her, and she has stuck it out, and she's the same person, and she's always been herself. And I think it's good for a lot of people to change when they need to. It's good to find themselves. um so on that note, do you feel like the poetry has kind of helped you to evolve and to get out the real you?
It has. It has. It's an interesting journey because yeah, I was more, like a punk kid. However, a lot more band shirts back then. And then I became so much more hippie as time goes on. But then the deeper I grow into my passions now, I'm starting to come darker and darker and like dress more goth that I never actually did before. So it's this interesting evolution that I'm really re-becoming myself, maybe in a more of a core essence. I mean, maybe I'm a healthy blend at this point with operating in my hippie goth mode, which is awesome. It describes all these different features of who I am, but um yeah, yeah, poetry, but it's because it kind of was born of that more, emo nature, that passionate nature, those bands that were so so deeply self-expression oriented, all the ones that were like, you don't have to follow the crowd, you just be yourself, you be your bold-hearted self, whatever that looks like, just be a good person out in this world. And those are the bands that were really saying that stuff back then. And then they're still deep in my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel this. I think it's, I mean, a lot of mums will be listening to this because I have a lot of mum listeners, and it kind of, you go through pregnancy and childbirth and having children, and it can kind of change the way that you look at the world, and suddenly you're not just responsible for you, and you're responsible for this little person, and it can
Mhm.
hide who you really are. And I feel like a lot of parents, as soon as their kids start hitting like 6, 7, 8, it's when they start bringing themselves back out again and kind of
Mhm.
getting into what they need. And we were speaking before that, like, as a mum, we're going to move into the tea section now. I love tea and I drink tea all the time. So
I mean, I need another Steve.
so I know I wish I got a cup of tea before I started this. Um, but I would drink tea, and I'm in the UK, so it's just, English tea. I have switched to decaf, but yeah, so I'm on decaf tea most of the day. And when I feel myself the most is when I'm sat there with my cup of tea, or stood there, I should say, in the kitchen, drinking my cup of tea with my music blasting out, and just singing and listening to words, and just, that is when I like completely feel like myself. So let's talk about tea and how tea can have a big
Hey.
effect in lifestyle. Because I feel like, you know, English tea is probably not what you do. That's not like, I know you do herbal tea and things. So let's talk about that. And yeah, I'll let you.
Absolutely. Okay, yeah. I mean, so right now I'm having a black tea. And how do I start with tea? I mean, let's go with lifestyle. I was a coffee drinker for like 8 years, all of high school, all of university. By the end of university, I just found myself like not feeling right with it. And then and then kind of around that time, I actually got hired at a tea shop, and I was really excited to have something just to kind of keep learning and keep, engaging in after I was graduated, because I'm like, I don't want to just totally let myself go after this. So then I mean, I fell in love with tea. It's a whole other story. Um, and part of me, I was really wanting to have like something like that too, because like, people can just fall into addictions. They can fall into really bad lifestyle habits. So I was just very glad at a young age to harness this love for tea, because it is very mindfulness practice. So what I do is Gong Fu Cha, which is it's like the word kung fu, which is really just means a skill that is developed over time. When you add cha at the end, that's the Chinese word for tea. And so that's the practice with these little teapots, and you put like 5 or 6 grams into there, and then you just do multiple steeps. And the journey of that is that the the leaves open up on the first steep, and you often just kind of pour out that water, and then you do your first steep, a little bit weaker, and the next few are a lot stronger, and then you keep going until the flavor starts to taper out. So you so it's really mindful in that you do a whole thing, that you smell the leaves, you're tasting the infusions as they change throughout the session. I mean, this is if you have time, but it can be an hour-long session, and it's it's just really a great practice. And I mean, I don't know if I can show, we're usually using these different kinds of tea trays, so I get to make a little altar out of it. There's a crystal on here, and there can be different elements on my trays.
I love that. So it's like a whole little meditation practice, really, with all of it
It
together. Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
I say, I'm like, I don't know if I'm like meditate very much. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do tea. Like
Yeah,
every day.
definitely. And it just it makes you slow down, doesn't it? Because like, I'm there saying I drink tea all day, every day, and that's me flicking the kettle on, tipping it, drinking it while I'm working, while I'm doing stuff. It's not a sit down and actually enjoy it. It's just, oh, a cup of tea. Let's just cup of tea, keep going all the
Yeah.
time. Um, so what kind of other teas like do you use, and can you give a little bit of insight on? I think the only ones that I tend to use is I would do English tea just like during the day. I normally have a green tea in the morning, and this is the thing, right? I use these because I heard they're good for you. I don't know why I'm doing it, right? So I got green tea in the morning, and then I have a peppermint or a chamomile at night. But other than that, that is like my knowledge. I just know that that's good for you.
Well, I don't have to sell the idea of tea to British people, because,
Yeah.
they're good. But in Canada, there's so many coffee drinkers, and I have to explain to people. Um, like tea has such a different like caffeine delivery into the body, and it has something called L-theanine in it, which is, I don't know all the scientific words because I'm more of a poet. But it really does like help to relax the mind and the body and everything a lot better than the caffeine delivery from coffee that can get you a little bit more jittery and worked up. Then you kind of get to have this more flowing, longer sustaining, awakening effect on the body, throughout the day, I mean. Uh, and so, and then I mean, the different kinds of tea, and I mean, when I'm saying tea, I'm saying the Camellia sinensis plant. That is what is green tea, white, black, oolong, and pu'er. Um, I mean, it's a whole world in itself. What I'm usually drinking is pu'er, which is this kind of tea. They press it into these cakes, and they traditionally age it. So I can be having a tea that's like made this year or made like 7 years ago, 10 years ago, depends when again I can get my hands on. Um, those and oolongs are the ones that are really fun to explore with Gong Fu Cha style. Um, yeah, I mean, and then there's, I mean, there's so many different kinds of herbs too that have different kinds of medicinal effects. I mean, I like, but like tea is just so good for heart health too. And I know it has a huge influence on my state of mind, my my happiness, and I mean, it really goes into my writing too. Uh, I was really proud that back in October I made an album and it really came from like having a good tea session and recording.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, because it is that, like you said, you're doing a whole spiritual practice as you're drinking it. So it's bound to help your mind focus. And it's interesting that you said about did you say heart problems? Is that like heart health? Sorry.
Heart health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Because I didn't know that.
Well, the kind of joy that tea brings you, I mean, that's good for your heart.
Yeah, true.
Now, again, there's a lot more scientific things in there that you can look up truly. But but honestly, like the kind of loving happiness that goes into your heart. I mean, there are tea poets out there. There's I followed for years this they're a magazine called the Global Tea Hut, and they are about Taoism and tea and how those like really intersect together. And so I've learned so much about tea practice coming from there. But they're just intricate values with Buddhism and tea, and you know, state of mind and philosophy and um, yeah, it's a joyful plant.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling this and I'm already craving tea and I want to go and get a cup of tea, which I'm going to straight after this. So how else do you try to keep like a healthy lifestyle then? Because obviously I feel like even just with the tea, I mean, God, do you even need to do anything else? If you've got that practice, you've got your tea, you've got your poet, you're making your music, like I feel like you should be really calm and joyful and happy all the time anyway, just with that. But is there anything else that you do?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, you know, I am a very happy and joyful person, but you know, I do think about a lot of dark things a lot. I mean, I just recently, I mean, last week I ran a 5-day grief poetry workshop because I'm like, well, I honestly think about death a lot and grief and people passing. Um, but it's the thing is keeping those things in mind and healthy balance can contribute to a healthy, happy lifestyle because instead of pushing those things away and repressing that stuff, I mean, death is always around us, um, right? And so just being able to acknowledge the presence of those things somewhat regularly, maybe not as often as I do, but it goes into my work, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, and then just um yeah, but I mean, and I think I'm literally happier for keeping those things in mind and processing. Um, yeah, I was even just kind of thinking last night, I'm like, because people spend a lot of time on the internet, just um, we watch a little reels, we get that little spark of oh, not adrenaline's the wrong word, but the thing that
Dopamine. Yeah.
dopamine,
Yeah.
yeah, looking for that next funny thing, the next funny thing, um, and then we don't really spend as much time with our emotions, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I've like banned myself now from social media. Unless I go on there, I make sure that I post something helpful first. And then if I feel in an okay place, I will scroll for 5 minutes. But I will make sure that I will first post something positive and uplifting so that I'm putting the good into the world rather than because like especially on TikTok, I've been scrolling through there before and it can be so depressing and you come away and you just feel like, oh my God, what world do we live in? So I feel like it's nice to be able to create and to put something good in the world. But yeah, I totally know what you mean about suppressing the negative stuff and holding it back. And it's really not a good thing to do. And this is why journaling and poetry is great for this, isn't it? Because you're getting it out of your head. Um, and it's just stopping it from being there. And I mean, I've my family are not so great at dealing with this kind of stuff. And if we tend to talk about this, it gets pushed away. It's We don't want to talk about this. So I feel like it's good to have something where you can have the outlet to that. And not even necessarily grief, but like anything that's upsetting you. I mean, I do it all the time with like stress and being a parent, because that is something in itself. Um, so can you give any advice for anybody listening who maybe they do this, they get stuck in their head and they need to get it out, and like where should they start, especially if they're interested in poetry but have like never done it before? Can you give any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what we said in the beginning, the scary thing is the blank page and what to do with it, right? And if you don't even know where to start, honestly, you just pick up the pen and you just start going. Whatever the first thing line in your head is, that might not even be what you end up journaling on because you might just come up with like a dumb phrase just to make yourself start. So whatever, start. But then the truth of whatever you need to start expressing does start to come out. You just have to let it out. I mean, if anybody here is a Harry Potter fan, I like to think about the in the sixth book in our movie with the pensieve, when Dumbledore puts his wand to his head, draws out that little string of stuff, right, and puts it into a little bottle and he's like, and we cast it away. But it's kept, right? It's these things that, yeah, we want to get that stuff out of our heads, but we get to put it on the page, we get to process it. And guess what? It's still sitting there. It's still in all of these journals right here. And so we can look back and see what those things were, but it doesn't have to sit in our heads all the time.
Yes. Yes, I
And then
love
when it
that.
comes to writing poetry, then it's like, you can write a whole paragraph, you can write 3 pages, but then maybe just see like what some of those interesting elements were. Is there something coming from the heart? Is there is there a tender moment that was in there? Or, I mean, a poem can still be something that was very upsetting, or, like you can go and feel like that little emo poet and write something kind of dark too. That's okay. Like you get a poem out of it and it means something to you.
Yeah. I've been watching Ginny and Georgia, and I don't know if you've watched that at all. And
Yeah.
the last season, she basically goes to like a poetry class and she writes some dark stuff, but it's amazing. It's amazing to listen to and to feel those emotions. And for anybody listening who wants to start this, like, and I'm sure you can agree with this, don't try and think of it as another thing to do. It's meant to be a mindful practice that's going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Amazing. Well, it's been so good to chat with you. Just before we head off, is there anything that you want to say or add that we didn't cover today?
I wanted to read, it's not entirely a poem, this piece, but it is like a mantra, and
Okay.
I
I
think
mean,
that'd be a
can
nice
I
way to
just
end this
say,
off.
can I just say, I wanted to ask you to do that, and I thought I'm not going to put you on the spot in case there's nothing there. So thank you.
I kept my journals right, or the books right beside me. This is my third book called Emptiness of the Way. All right. May I express positivity. May I carry a sense of healing. May I find joy. Make the best of my time when I feel distracted. Remember how life is a dream. I appreciate my body as a temple. Awareness of my health leads to a cure. Allow myself to rest when I need to. My smile is a powerful force. I am deserving of happiness. The rose petals of my heart soften from metal armor to the gentlest of flowers.
Oh, I love that. Amazing. That is such a lovely note to finish this on. Thank you so much for joining me. What I will do is I will put all your links in the description of this on Spotify and on YouTube. So if you could send me the link to your book, that would be amazing. And anybody who wants it, go and grab it. Thank you so much for joining me at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I hope you can get some amazing sleep now.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice to talk, Leah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.